We are being recorded, as you know, and so here we go. My friend Dmitry Babich in Moscow, working at, where are you now?
Well, right now I'm just a political scientist, but I used to work for the major Russian newspapers such as Moscow News, and I worked for RIA Novosti news agency for a few years. And foreign viewers probably know me also as a radio man. I worked on the Voice of Russia, which later became Sputnik International, but
Hmm.
now I'm just a political scientist, a political commentator.
Just the political commentator. I know. Yep. It's a pleasure to see you, my friend. So I'm here watching the spectacle, the Democratic convention. Uh, the work of the usual conventions is not actually being done here. The role of the conventions used to be that candidates would gather delegates through a variety of means over a period of several months or even a year leading up to the convention. Everyone would pile into this large place, a venue, and do horse trading of all kinds. There were rules that said these people have to vote for this person on the first ballot. There were others that said these people can vote whoever they want. Out of this whole mess would emerge a candidate for the party that came out of at least the processes of the party and had some claim to be a legitimate representative of the party members by doing that. The last two now, the one last time under the excuse of COVID was canceled, and there was some maneuvering in the back room that led to a Biden Harris ticket and Biden Harris administration. And now all of the work that was supposed to be done at the convention as a product of the primaries, in fact, has been set aside. And Harris has been nominated by unknown people, by an unknown vote, taken privately, and done in advance of the convention. So the convention is really a sort of a big celebratory event rather than a working meeting. What's it look like from the other side of the world when you're looking in here at the home of democracy, as they advertise?
We just were very impressed when Kamala Harris said to Biden, "I love you." The joke here was that now that he's out of the way, everyone loves him. When he was, a kind of an irritant, no one loved him.
That's
Everyone
right.
said he is dementic and it's time for him to step back. Basically, I think it would make sense here to talk about a larger phenomenon, and that is the destruction of the principle of electability in the United States and unfortunately in the world at large. There is this trend. When I talk to my American friends, some of them, of course, Russian former immigrants who now develop more and more love for Russia, they told me very often that, okay, from the Russian media and from European media that, the ideology of liberals in the United States, ultra liberals, is destruction of family, destruction of traditional values. Not only that, they say, there is also destruction of law or rule of law. There is destruction of economy and economic principle of free competition. And there is a destruction of electability of the principle when at least certain leaders taking decisions have to be elected. They have to be liked by the electorate, by the people whom they actually represent. Now, more and more, we are ruled, not only in the United States, by this idea that the boss knows better and the world should work just like one big company. And it looks more and more like a Japanese company of the 80s or like some totalitarian company under Henry Ford or someone like him. which absolutely excludes participation of humans in taking decisions. There's usually just one or two humans who take them, and there is a very, very stringent ideology behind it. Let's not deceive ourselves. I think it's clear that certainly Biden and Harris are not the best. Certainly the United States has to offer a lot of better people. And even if we take the so-called leftists, the so-called left liberal trend in American policy, there are lots of smart people there who make a much better impression than Kamala Harris. I mean, Josh Shapiro is obviously not a stupid man. There were other people from other states. There was Gavin Newsom, after all. But this is the way totalitarian system, totalitarian ideology works. Since it denies competition, since it establishes monopoly in convictions, there is nothing better than liberal democracy, as they understand it. There is nothing better than the economy created in the United States by Bill Clinton. There is no better media than the media ruled by 5 big companies, as Bill Clinton established it in the 90s. So if there is no competition of ideologies, why should there be a competition in economy? And why should there be competition in who becomes the candidate of the Democratic Party at the elections? Isn't it better just to leave it to artificial intelligence or to very, very smart people who represent the ultra-liberal ideology? They will choose the best candidate for you, and you just follow the orders. So in that sense, I think Democratic Convention doesn't make more sense than the so-called congresses of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union under Brezhnev. Under Khrushchev and under Stalin, they still made sense. There was the 20th Congress when Stalin's cult was criticized. But under Brezhnev, they made absolutely no sense. It was just a waste of money. The same story here. I don't hear you, my friend. I don't know why.
I muted my microphone. I'm sorry.
Okay, please restart.
Yeah. You've been using the term totalitarian in our conversations for more than 10 years now. I remember around the time of the Maidan, even in the critique of the society, how this all-encompassing ideological framework. You say that there's nothing better than this neoliberalism or whatever, but in fact, the way they treat it almost is there's nothing else other than this is the only ideology, not just the only correct one, and that doesn't leave a lot of room for self-reflection, self-criticism, reevaluation. When you try something and it doesn't work, if you cannot make a mistake, then there's nothing wrong. And the Soviet Union, perhaps also the model of a factory by Henry Ford, these are perfect examples of where these things lead, ultimately just to collapse of its own weight. How do they find their way out of this, and without taking all of us with them?
I use the term totalitarian because this is the only way I can explain the destructive ways of these people. I mean, take the Ukrainian crisis. If only they didn't do anything, if only they left Yanukovych in peace with the rest of Ukraine in 2014, 2013, there would be no war. There would be development. Okay, maybe there would be some corruption, and Ukrainians would keep saying, and the Americans would keep saying that this is business as usual. Well, it's better business as usual than first a terrible civil war in Ukraine and then a civil war with the participation of Russia.
Yeah.
And I can't explain it by economic considerations. Some people say, oh, just some people feel their pockets. Who feels his or her pockets? Very few people. And ultimately, they are also the losers. I mean, because of the war in Ukraine, Ukraine became poorer. Russia became poorer because of the sanctions. The American businessmen who invested billions, tens of billions, hundreds of billions in Russia and Ukraine, they became poorer. The American state became poorer. It's a lose-lose situation for everyone. The same story in internal US politics. Who is served by Kamala Harris? What have we heard from her during these 4 years when she was in charge? She had a number of opportunities to demonstrate her skills. Okay, there's immigration policy. There is, you are a prosecutor. Okay, do something with the legal system. Do something with the prison system, you know.
Right.
Do something, suggest something in foreign policy. Nothing, you know. We had nothing from her. So totalitarianism is the only way how I can explain it. Because if you look at the motives of people who do it and who destroy relations between countries, who destroy American traditions, the only entity that gains something from this is this ultra-liberal woke ideology. Because they say, okay, there is a war, but Russia becomes weaker, Putin becomes weaker, that's fine, that will make the world a better place. Okay, we're destroying the American economy. Yeah, people are getting poorer, but Trump is no longer so popular. You know, our people, Kamala and Joe, are still heroes. There is immigration, you know, there are people spilling over the southern border. That's terrible on the one hand, it's fine on the other, they will probably vote for the Democrats. So this ideology, it is totalitarian because it is stupid, it is self-serving.
Yep.
And the problem is that it embodies certain old dreams of some very good people, but these old dreams became absolutely irrelevant today. I mean, in the 60s, people were dreaming of equal rights for gays and straight men. And that's a good dream. That's a fine dream. Just don't make it, don't make it primitive, you know. Don't make it all encompassing.
Yeah.
The same story with feminism. It's an absolutely noble, great idea. Just don't do it the corporate way. You know, when talking about destruction of discrimination, they actually force women to work at the jobs which were usually for men because they were dirty and required a lot of physical labor,
Right.
a lot of physical effort. Provide the kindergartens, just like we have in Russia, free kindergartens. The United States is a country tens of times richer than Russia, and it cannot provide the kindergartens. With that huge feminist movement, obviously that feminist movement is doing something else. It's not supporting family women. It's supporting the corporations that want women to be lonely and to make so-called careers working for them 16 hours a day. So it's a sad story, you know, the history of the Democratic Party and the state to which it has been reduced now.
Yeah, it's a sad story for the people that have to live those lives too. The the safe spaces that have been carved out for people is sort of in tandem with the assigned roles that they received in the society. The safe space was taken away as a part of the remedy, and the remedy never really implemented. Where women were making 70% or 60% of men's wages for the same or a comparable job, say 20 or 30 years ago, now everyone's making 60 or 70% of what they made before.
But there is no discrimination.
Yeah.
Everyone is unhappy, right? Everyone
Right.
is exploited. So there is no discrimination.
Yep. Yeah, the solution to the problem of inequality was lowest common denominator instead of prosperity, instead of sharing.
True.
Yep. Well, I mean, this rests on the basis of the, among other things, the political power of the working people here, the middle class and working classes, to be able to make the government make policy that will advance their economic interests and other interests. And it seems that the events like I'm witnessing this week I can't imagine a more impotent class of people than the working class in the United States.
It's true. Basically, I think our listeners understand how it works with the so-called discrimination of women. They're talking about discrimination in order to let women take men's jobs so that there would be more competition. They want to double the number of working hands.
Right.
And when you double the number of candidates for a certain job, it means that the wage gets lower because there are more people who want to take it, right?
That's right. That's right.
So the same story everywhere, and the terrible populism, absolutely totalitarian populism of Kamala, you know, when she talks about controlling the prices.
Yeah.
This is typical. Hitler talked about controlling the prices and lowering the taxes. You know, in the Soviet Union, in the worst times, this was the worst kind of populist rhetoric from Joseph Stalin. You know, when he actually veered off the real socialist way, he kept saying, "But I control the prices. The prices stay the same for decades, and they stayed the same for decades in the Soviet Union. The problem was that no one wanted to sell goods for these prices, so there were huge lines, there were huge deficits, and these lines, which Western people made fun of under Gorbachev, they were the result of that price policy. You know, the state artificially lowered the prices, and it put in jail the salespeople who wanted to sell things for their true worth, for the real price. So basically, what we hear from Kamala Harris is just pathetic. It's not professional. It's not scientific. It's not scientific from an economic point of view. It's not scientific from a legal point of view. And the problem is that we need right now someone in the United States, someone who would help to veer away from the precipice, because we are moving towards the precipice. You know, the idea which Western leaders keep repeating: we cannot allow Ukraine to lose. We must give Ukraine weapons, I quote, as long as it takes. As long as it takes us where? To the nuclear war? To the disaster? And the situation in Russia, I mean, they celebrate the fact that Zelensky's army has crossed into Russian territory, and they say that this will somehow improve Ukraine's negotiating positions. Come on, you know, Putin and Russia, we will not trade Crimea with its Russian people for the occupied part of Kursk region with other Russian people. You know, some people in the United States might imagine that you can buy and sell and exchange land, like Donald Trump wanted to buy Greenland, right, from Norway, as far as from Denmark, I don't remember.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way in Russia or in Eurasia. There, the land, you know, the territory has a sacred meaning. There was no frontier that passed there. Oh, that frontier passed 1,600 years ago, you know. The same people have been living there, mostly Slavs, for all of these 1,600 years. So people who suggest some kind of exchange between Zelensky and Russia, they just don't understand how things work here. They don't understand that by his incursion, Zelensky made negotiations impossible, at least in the near future. Russia will not agree to have negotiations. And I must tell you, it is an omen, or it is a sign of the coming victory of Russia, for a very simple reason. Some people compare this war to the Finnish War of 1939-1940. I don't like that comparison, because in 1939-1940, Stalin attacked Finland almost for no reason at all, except its ties to Nazi Germany, which were not yet without alternative in 1939. And that's why we basically were not successful with that war, because Soviet soldiers did not understand, why should we go to Helsinki to free Finnish workers from Finnish capitalists? Why don't Finnish workers do it themselves? You know, that's why we were not successful, particularly successful. But when in 1941 Finland allied itself to Hitler. And Russian territory was attacked from the territory of Finland by the Germans and by the Finns.
Right.
Then suddenly Russians started to fight much better. They started to defend Leningrad because it was our territory. In the same way now, I'm sure there will be more people volunteering for the army.
Yeah.
Because of what happened to Kursk region. We are now defending our land. Kursk region and Belgorod region, these are 5 million people. It's almost like all of the disputed Donbas area. So they will provide enough volunteers to defeat Zelensky. So in all ways, it's a new and very dangerous situation. But Kamala Harris keeps laughing. It's so nice to see someone who can burst out laughing every minute, you know, and that's what she is, right? I'm kind of, I'm worried by this laugh. This laugh doesn't make me happy. It doesn't calm me down.
It makes me very nervous.
Exactly.
I guess what I'd like to know is while you're looking over here at all of this, what are you hearing around you there with people, the other people that are looking at it from Moscow, looking at what's happening in the United States now?
Well, you know, everyone is a specialist on the United States in the world. It's so easy, you know, so many people speak English, and because of that,
everywhere,
we all have more or less idea of what the US presidential system is, blah, blah, blah. So you can see specialists on the United States on every corner in Russia. And there is, of course, it used to be a lot of idealization in the 80s and in the 90s. Now there's a lot of demonization. I think what we face in the United States, it's not some diabolic transgression. It's not some terrible new epoch. It's a totalitarian ideology that unfortunately won, not only in the United States, but also in France, also in the UK. In the UK, misogyny is declared an extremist activity. It's declared a crime. Yeah. Misogyny is a crime. It's no longer a wrong view of things. It's no longer a wrong opinion. It's a crime. In France, we had this opening of the Olympic Games, which somehow happened to insult just about every religion in the world. Yeah. Do you think it's all coincidental? Do you think it's coincidental that there's a lot of reports about that in Russia? All kinds of perverts are coming to this conference of Democrats, and people are suggested free vasectomy here, you know, to become unable to produce children. All of that scares people off. To my opinion, it's just you know, it's a wrong ideology, and the problem is that it's totalitarian. It doesn't tolerate any other views. It says that it's the only progressive one. Right. You can only be as progressive as Biden. You cannot be better. Isn't that awful? You know. And the problem is that the alternative is also terrible, because Donald Trump is just average. In the eyes of Russians, he is an average American nationalist. And did you notice he keeps saying the same things, you know? In Russia, even Brezhnev did not say the same things so many times as Trump does, you know? He keeps saying, I can get along with Putin. How many times did we hear that? I think in the last 10 years, at least 5,000 times. I will stop the war 24 hours after I enter the Oval Office. We heard it before, I think, right?
Yeah.
He can't invent anything new, you know. There are no new ideas, just that kind of, you know, self-advertising 24/7. The same story with Kamala Harris. We see this smile. It's like a Cheshire cat. It smiles. But what is behind that smiles? Are there any ideas? Are there any political new forces that would make the country progress? There's nothing behind it.
Yeah, they're like thought fractals or I don't know, concept fractals or something. There's the kernel of something in there. I don't quite know what it is, but people hear it and it massages their brain to think they've heard something when they actually haven't heard anything.
But you know, from my experience, I travel to many countries, and I try to live the life of Russians, live the life of Poles, for some time, live the life of Germans, live the life. There are two things that may actually make people poor. First, this is monopoly on anything. Economic monopoly, or monopoly on ideology,
Yeah.
or monopoly on, I don't know, certain view of science, you know.
Yeah.
And the second thing is when private property is confiscated without legal due process. And that now happened to a lot of people from Russia, not necessarily rich ones. They just seize your assets abroad because you're Russian. Today they do it to Russians. Tomorrow they will do it to Chinese. The day after tomorrow they will do it to Americans. And this kills the initiative. People stop working in two situations. First, if it's not allowed to work the way you want because there's a monopoly. And second, when everything you earn can be taken away from you. Why the hell work?
What's the point?
If you can take it away. For the good of society, you know.
Yeah, that's a real motivator.
For waging a war for freedom in Ukraine, you know, $60 billion this spring alone, right? And for the survival of Israel, you know, they keep taking your money away from you, and that kills initiative. It's not just, the problem is not just, you know, high taxes. The problem is that people are kind of put at a disadvantage. They are forced to become lazy because if you can't improve your life by working efforts, you stop making working efforts.
Yeah, you're getting paid the salary of a lazy person. Might as well do the job.
Exactly.
Dmitry, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate the chance to speak with you, my friend. I look forward to speaking with you again sometime soon.
Thank you, my friend, and don't stay too long at that conference. Just, you know, return to real life. You know.
Really, thank you. I'll see you soon, buddy. Take care.
And have a good time. Where is it? Is it in Chicago?
Chicago, yeah, downtown. Yep.
Is it a nice place, or is it the way I was told it became?
Where I'm staying downtown by the theater district. The convention is nearby, but I'm not credentialed for this. I didn't want to go inside. I'm covering the streets. I got people that are here to protest and other reasons. I'm interviewing them, and we've got people at the protest, and so that's what we're doing instead.
Well, let's hope the state of Illinois was not treated by Obama in the same way he treated American foreign policy. By American foreign policy, he was a disaster. I don't know about the state of Illinois. I hope it was.
I'll let you know.
Yeah. Okay, my friend. See you.
Thanks,
bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye, man.